So E7 recently announced that they're going to be implementing some pretty big changes in the upcoming patches with their new episode showcase. So there's obviously a lot of information like story changes, update schedule changes. Those aren't really too relevant, I think, if you're like mainly an RTA player like myself, but they are nice. So I wanted to go over some of the new heroes that will be coming to the game. So the first one we have is Hecate, and then we're going to have MLDN as well as Aki, who's supposed to be, I guess, the MC of the next episode or one of the main focus characters of the next episode. And then I'm assuming this is going to be another ML ice area, so probably a light ice area. So a lot of new heroes coming in. We recently got the kits for, first of all, 4-star Siren, which wasn't included in this, but she's going to be the next ML4, and then Hecate, who's going to be a grass limited. So let's get into Hecate's kit. So looking at first her animations, I think her skill 3 animation is really, really cool. I like it a lot. I think it's very cool effect. So you can see she's an Earth Warrior, HP, Team Imprint, and then she's got a passive as well. And pretty funny meme where passive unit or units with passives in Epic 7 are usually like considered very strong. So looking at next thing is going to be her base stats. So they're just showing off her design, and I think her design is so, so good. She's obviously from the Sega Scythe artifact. And then base stats, she's very high, or not very high base health, but high base health, average speed, low base attack, normal defense. So it's like pretty warrior classic stat line. But then she's a attack self imprint, but from her base stats, it kind of looks like an HP scaler, which is pretty weird. But we'll see what they're cooking with the kit. So her passive, enemy heroes cannot revive and cannot be granted immortality. And when attacking, penetrates the target's defense by 85%, which goes to 100%, and cannot trigger a critical hit or a heavy blow. So a heavy blow is basically like a chance to do, I think it's 20 or 30% additional damage, but it's not a crit. So it's like that. When the gray number is big, that's like a crushing hit or a heavy blow. So I think this passive is perfect for this meta. I think a lot of people last season were very, very unhappy with like the made Ruel trade that would go on almost every game, games lasting way too long. Revive, Immortality was just very, very annoying. So this, I think she does a good job of preventing games extending too long, but it's not like I don't think Made is going to be essentially useless because part of why Made is so strong is because not just because of the revive buff, but her passive gives you the damage reduction from extra damage, and then also the defense buff on her skill 3 now. So she's still going to be strong, maybe not as dominant with Hecate coming into the meta, and I think that's also where the second part of her passive comes in, where Maid is like she makes everyone tanky by giving them defense buff, but then now we have a Hecate who's gonna be penetrating 100% of your defense on basically every attack, so that's really really good S2. And then looking at her skill 3, which is going to be up next. Skill 3, Inescapable Demise. After granting increased attack to the caster, I think with her base attack, she kind of had to get attack buff. And just to note, you can see that Soul Burn gives her greater attack buff for 3 turns, which is insane. Attacks the enemy by releasing the Force of the Netherworld. When the target is a hero, ignores damage share and begins the battle with a full cooldown count. So you can see here, this is going to be a single target nuke essentially, where she's going to ignore stuff like Aureus. And just to know, we did in the showcase, they also announced we're going to have 3 new sets coming in. And one of those sets is going to be one that increases your max HP, but then fully resets your skill cooldowns at the start of a battle. So I think it's pretty much tailor made for her. Units like Dark Corvus, Lyre, all going to go on it. So it's like pretty good timing where I think she's gonna have to run that set because otherwise you're gonna be waiting 6 turns for your S3. She does have a mechanic on her skill 1 to reduce her cooldown. If I just show that now, so skill 1, Reaper's Scythe attacks the enemy with the Sega Scythe before increasing combat readiness of the caster by 20%. So you could see some value with counter, although I don't think it's going to be worth it. And when using the caster's turn, activates Final Deliverance as an extra attack. Final Deliverance attacks all enemies before granting stealth to the caster for 1 turn and decreasing skill cooldowns by 2 turns. So it's basically 2 turns of S1 and then you would have S3 because you reduce your skill cooldown by 2 and then when you count the turn you're taking, that's 3 turns. So every third turn you should have skill 3 available. And obviously we know from our passive she's gonna penetrate the target's defense with even the S1 and Final Deliverance, and then also kind of reduces the value of counter because it's only working. You only use the extra attack when you do it on her turn. So I think she's going to be bringing a lot of damage to the table. Obviously, they put in stealth there to give her some additional survivability because she's going to want to build high attack. Probably build like it's probably like a kind of Malona style build where you build high attack, bulk, maybe some speed, but then you're basically taking away the crit damage that you would build with Malona. So pretty interesting design. You could also, I think we could also be seeing some ER type builds. So it kind of depends. And then looking at how artifacts, when attacking, if a non-critical hit is made, increases damage dealt by 20% and deals additional damage proportional to the caster's attack to the target. So this is basically like we've had the health version of this with 3F, the defense version with Rocket Punch, and then this is basically the attack version now. Even though we already had Uberia's Tooth, but it's like Uberia's Tooth plus 20% damage on your actual skill. So pretty good artifact, I would say. I think it's definitely going to be valuable, and then we know she's limited, so limited units always have really good artifacts. So I'm definitely going to be pulling. I think I'm going to be trying to maximum break the artifact and go for triple S imprint, and we'll see how that goes. And then next, I wanted to cover some of the new sets that are going to be coming to the game. So here we have the three new sets that are going to be coming to the game. We have first the Warfare set, which is a 4-piece set. So you're not going to be able to combine that with something like a counter. So this was what I mentioned was going to be going on Hecate, Dark Culver, Slayer. People were saying maybe Tamarine could see some RTA play with this. I think that would be pretty funny, pretty interesting. So I do hope it happens. And I think this set is it's just made for units to give them more agency. Like these kind of units that would have to stall until they were able to do anything will now be able to do something right from the start of the battle, and then increase health because majority of these units are HP scalers. So it's pretty. I think it's going to be a pretty good set in the meta. Niche, but very strong when it's like a unit's best in slot. And an acceleration set when someone ends their turn increases speed. I was going back and forth with my guild mates on I think this set is really dependent on how big the speed increase is because you could, if it's like a decent amount of speed that you get, you could see on units like Fairy, which of the Tenebria, where they're like known for their high scaling. And if she's getting faster as the battle goes on, she's going to be cycling so much faster, and it's going to be like, I think, a really toxic combo. So I was thinking it's probably going to go on those mid-speed type units. I think it could also go on certain DPS. Maybe it's really number dependent. And then the last set increases additional damage dealt. It's a 2-piece set, and I think for this one they're going to be quite conservative. We need to be quite careful because additional damage you have obviously like stuff like Bellion where it's like chip damage, which is like not an insane amount of damage, but it's so consistent it can ramp up. And then you have the like extra damage nukers like Festive Eater, where they do like 10 to 15,000 damage at once. So I think they need to be quite careful with the numbers they put on this because if you see like a triple pursuit set Eater that can do like 25,000 damage, that's not going to be healthy for the game. So I think these three sets are going to be, they're all pretty good sets. The last two are kind of number dependent. The first one I think is definitely going to be a strong set. So going to be pretty interesting to see what people cook up, what people put these sets on. I think the first one is pretty set in stone. We're going to know all the users right from the get go. But the other two, they have a lot more potential, a lot more like potential to go on a different kind of units and more maybe future units as well. So going to be very interesting to see. And then the last thing I wanted to cover was just some additional information that I think would be useful that was also announced in the episode showcase. So one of the things that I think people have been waiting a long time for is going to be headcount coming back. Finally, I think it's been quite a long time since our last one. A lot of good options, especially if you're looking to play RT. I think it goes up to Disciplinary Prefect Aria, so that's going to include Boss Arunka, Successor Teiyu, Lone Wolf Pyra. So plenty of good options in there. I think uh, you can probably wait because you're going to have quite some time before you actually have to pick up. So just to see how the meta shapes up when we get the new units like a Kitty coming in. Uh, Another thing to mention is going to be upcoming heroes. So I mentioned before we're going to have the Monarch of the Sword Arya. Not quite sure yet if it's going to be an ML or going to be maybe an RGB because we already have it could be like a blue ice area, but I think most likely it's going to be a light ice area. Well, I'm hoping it will. I think the design is amazing. Kind of reminds me of the Elbrich Ritual Sword So very, very good design. Arky coming in as well. I think it would be crazy if he's not a fire unit. Like it's pretty much his whole theme is around fire. I think he was one of the successors of the lore wise like related to Magnar. So I think he's definitely gonna be a fire unit. And then Shepherd of the Dark DN. I think this is gonna be the next ML5. Should be a dark unit, I assume, just because of her name. So looking forward to seeing her kit. And that's pretty much going to be it for this update. I think they announced a lot of good QOLs, a lot of good story related things, but this video was just to cover like some of the more RTA related things that people can look forward to. So see you guys in the next one.